welcome back to the fifth episode of the I Am an Icon podcast. As you all know, ICON stands for I Can Overcome Negativity. Today with me, I have Nicole Jennings. She is a woman of many hats. She is an entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Queen Anna House of Fashion. She is a philanthropist. Nicole, I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to connect.
Yes. So I really want to start off by you telling just like who you are, sharing a part of your story with the audience. So yeah, let's start off with that. Who are you, Nicole?
Who am I? That's a big, deep question that could probably go on for quite some time, but I know we're on a time schedule. So, however, who am I at the core is a lover of mankind, like a human race, like that at my core, at my heart. I really have a heart for people. And I am a big um, proponent for women specifically, but again, all people, right? All people matter, the whole concept, but specifically people of color. I think that concept for me as a Black woman is essential to my existence in the lineage that my family has. So it's something that I'm so passionate about. So helping people succeed, take limits off their minds, and allowing them just to live their very best life beyond the words. Um, I'm a businesswoman. I have two businesses. One's a brick and mortar, Queen Anna House of Fashion, that is after my great grandmother who raised me. And then One Posh Closet is my fashion concierge service that I've had for 8 years now. It was online and digital and doing digital styling before digital anything really was a thing, because most of us had to do a real quick pivot with COVID. I was already, it was like, hey, y'all, where y'all been? I've been over here for a minute. That whole like pivot moment. I've been there, done that like space, and it's definitely a challenge. I have a bachelor's in nursing. We've got a family foundation, so the philanthropy side. And again, on and on and on. However, I think at the core of who I am, it's not necessarily the things that I do. Who I am at heart, like I said, goes back to the concept of loving people, all people for just that, being people. And making sure that those who have, and I guess I am in the category. However, I choose not to live that way, but not have the voice or like a voice for the voiceless. Considering the experiences that we've all like had up close and personal when you couldn't look away during 2020, I think that everyone can understand that. But I feel like in that space, I was able to really find out who I was and who I was meant to be, and just to walk out boldly in that space right now. And so that's who I'm comfortable at saying I am. A Black woman who has a Black husband with Black kids and owns a business, so a Black business owner, and loves all people and humankind. However, those that look like me are dying in the streets, and that just can't be for my existence, my lineage, and all of that. So essentially, I am my husband actually called me an activist yesterday and the other day, and I was like, I'm not necessarily out in the streets like that, but I'm an activist doing different level things in the scope. So
I love how you pointed that out too. Like you shine light on like your role as an activist. It doesn't have to be someone doing the protest, but like you are doing your due diligence on a systematic level, that's different from being out there, and it all is impactful. Everyone has their
hmm
role, and so like you using your role through vocalizing, even just in your own community, the change that needs to happen, to me is like so powerful. I do want to touch a little more about you starting Queen Anna House of Fashion, and it's beautiful that you started this in honor of your grandmother. So I really would love to know more just about like your like kind of like the strategy of like having fashion but then bringing the philanthropy and culture. Like where did that come from? I want to learn more about that story and that strategy to actually like integrate that within your business.
hmm um uh I got to come up with more elevator spiels for all of these things because I feel like there's they're so multifaceted. So essentially, my great grandmother raised me as I have other siblings, but I felt like raised like an only child. So she was 95 when she passed away. And the concept of it is um just think about your granny or your great grandmother or any grandmother. Like, you get that old school everything, right? So when it comes to philanthropy, that was who she was. She actually is got a college named after her, like in back home in Michigan, where we're from, Anna Witten Hall. So it's really cool to know her impact in that community. And it's the hotel that we stay at when we go back. I can literally look from the room and see her name, and that's always so fulfilling for me. Even like right now, she's got a little place in my office where she kind of just sits and like, because sometimes when you have two businesses, four kids, a husband, and all the things, you be like getting ready to flip a table. And I'm like, okay, Granny, bring me back to the center. So when it comes to the philanthropy, that concept, it's just kind of who I was raised to be. So it was not difficult for me to integrate that into my business because of the concept of it being authentically who I am. It'd be different if it was something that was like, so a strategy is a great way to place it and put it. However, I just was being me.
Yeah.
It's just that when you can just be authentically who you are and do the things that you're supposed to do, stay in your lane, highlight other people, it's not hard to do what you do and do that part well, and know that there's enough to go around for everybody. So when it comes to me and the way that I position the business and the brand, it won't speak to everyone, but I'm not trying to either, right? So essentially, a lot of businesses go out there and navigate life trying to be the answer for all things for all folks. And that's not, I can't say I didn't start that way. However, over the course of time, I have found that that's not a great strategy for me because I'm not a people pleaser.
Mm.
Everything I do, everything I say, the way that I do it is not going to always be the best for everyone involved. And therefore, there are going to be people I don't have what you need here, but let me show you who might. Um, and there are people who think that the concept of retail philanthropy, culture, and Black Lives Matter, and the concept of it being like the civil rights movement and not a political agenda type of a scenario, they won't shop there either. And that's okay,
Mm.
because essentially I'm not for everybody. And that was one of the things I was raised on. Like, my granny always used to tell me, like, I was a vintage piece, like a there was a special word I can't remember. It's like it's escaping me right now, but it was almost like um a special, unique sentiment, and not everyone appreciates that. And but it's not until you know its worth and its value that it really is appreciated. And so until then, people don't take the time. They're like, oh, that's a cool Cuddy, like a Cadillac, um, whatever, back old school. And then you get inside and you start to see how the details are so different, and you see how things are integrated differently, and you're like, this is so cool, like a vintage car.
Mm.
That's kind of Queen Anna. Like, you don't, a lot of people might hear about it, know about it, but when you come into the space, you recognize it for what it is, and appreciate it for, we are appreciated for how we do what we do, not necessarily what we do, if that makes sense. We sell clothes, accessories, have events. There's a lot of stores that do that. So essentially, what I'm doing is differentiating myself from the next store. And the way that I do that means that I won't fit the mold for a lot of people. I mean, I got a 4.5 on Yelp for being too nice. So I figure, I figure it's not for everybody.
Mm. I mean, but even like, when I got to come down there is truly an experience, right? And
Hmm.
you're providing, and like you said, it may not be for everybody, but there literally is the high quality of, from whether it's the customer service to just every piece that you have, you can tell there's intentionality and it's authentic and it feels good. And I think that's part of like what I'm excited about the brand that you're building and growing, because that's who you are and it shows even in that space. And I love brands like that because like we're all more invested in brands that feel, authentic and real and are really showing up and doing what they're saying. So I appreciate about that about you and everything that you do. Um,
Thank you.
of course. And so I want to know, just as a woman who wears many hats, what drives you every day? How do you motivate yourself to get it done?
Girl, I don't think I get it done. I'm trying to get, I mean, if it looked that way, thank you. I just feel, I really feel like I go, by the grace of God, I like legit. I don't know. I don't know. I have an amazing husband. And that's a big deal, right? Support system. He's my, he rounds my edges out, right? Like, so I can be a little sharp because I don't play. Like, who has time to play? Like, I don't want you to guess how I feel. Let's not waste no time. I just want to tell you. But then, as a leader and a professional, I have to navigate that accordingly because everybody doesn't operate that way, and that's fair. However, I just feel like you should take this information. Let's knock this out and let's all go be great, right? No, so he definitely is like he humbles me on a regular basis from a I mean, lovingly. Let me add that part in too. Humbles me in the concept of there's another way. There's often yes, you may be right. However, there are other ways to navigate this, Nicole, and let's just think about it a different way. And so he makes me better in that space. He's also big on sleep. So he makes sure that he's like in food, eat. So like he nourishes. So realistically, I gotta say he's probably outside of God. Like like I go back to that concept of in the physical realm. That's that anchor. I have an anchor. And outside of that, my motivation are my kids, my children, right? When you wake up every day and you can think about what your why is, and it's really an authentic, passionate thing behind it. For me, anyway, I'll speak to the fact that it really motivates me to push past my stopping point.
Mm,
But they also bring me back when I have, because I'm also, when I'm there. I'm like, I'm all the way in, I'm vested. But they also bring me back to remind me, hey, mommy, I'm over here, like family time now. So it's really, I like Tuesdays and Thursdays are my days of like going to pick up my kids at school and, you know, navigating work and life. And it's really nourished my soul this season of life. And I've really recognized the way that I get it done is to put the energy where it's needed and in that moment. And wherever I'm at, to be thoughtful enough to be present there and know that whatever else is happening on the flip side, like for instance at home, at work, I focus at work. I
mm,
don't focus on work. I don't focus on at of home stuff at work. But my thing is now, unless I'm working from home like I am today, that means that when I'm at home, I need to be actively present and not necessarily focused on work at home. And that's been the challenge just because of the facts of life since COVID, like having a smaller team, but still operating at a full capacity. So that's where I get to that point of like, I don't feel like I'm getting it all done. But I know that the things that do get done are the things that in that moment I believe matter the most.
that's awesome. And it's so refreshing to one see and hear like the power of black love. Like there's healthy relationships that exist, and to see it like in action is beautiful. And to know
Mm.
that you have that support system in a home that feels loving, that feels safe, is like completely awesome. And so I love that, and I want more and more people to recognize that it does exist, and
Oh
that
yeah.
in order to be better in just life, like you can have that partnership with someone who supports and believes in you, but also
Hmm.
and that's where your health really can come from. So that's awesome. I love that.
And I think also too, having that and holding that space of like correction, right? You gotta be, if you have all yes friends and ain't nobody really telling you, you got something in between your teeth, like go like this, or you know what I mean? If you don't have somebody watching you to help you out in that moment, it's almost like being fed lies. No one's helping you be better or
Mm,
challenging you to think outside of yourself, or think it through differently than where your perspective is if you don't have someone who challenges what it is that you might be bringing to the table. And it's not like battle, it's about, hey, have you ever thought about it this way? Or why do you, like, really, he calms me in such a great way, because I could get amped quickly. Like, especially when we talk about like Black and brown people and issues, and like, he told me about somebody telling him they almost ran him off the road and was like, yeah, Black Lives Matter. And I was like, whoosh, instantly, because first of all, that's my boo. You don't do him like that. But he was so cool. Like, why you let them people make you mad like that? I'm like, I don't know. Why you not mad? But the concept of the yin and the yang, it just really, it works.
Mm, that's so awesome. I love that so much. And so
Thank
just
you.
kind of changing gears here. Okay, so I know you talk a lot about just like racial equity, and I love it so much. I want to know, how have you seen the racial inequalities show up in your community?
Mm. I mean, again, going back to the concept of time, right? And so it depends. Are we talking about the Black community or the community in which I call home at this moment?
Let's talk about the community which you call home at this moment.
Okay. Well, being that I can count on one hand the number of people that look like me, that live in my exact walking radius neighborhood, that in itself is an inequality in the concept of um, diversification of who we get to see. The schools, that's a big to do right now. Um, you know, a lot of, and again, it's so interesting because the concept of being a Christian, and I say a Christian as in a believer of Christ, because the concept of Christianity has been like brought through the ringer, and the concepts that have been twisted to be to approve hate has been very challenging for me. So I got to be very thoughtful about my words, and the concept of like, I follow Jesus Christ. Like, that's it. Like, there's really no other way around that concept. However, I do believe that I don't want to call it an inequality, but that skew has been seen a lot too, to try to use that for in the Black community to navigate as a racial divide, I think. And that's been challenging for me, and I think that that's everywhere in the world, not necessarily just in this community. However, I do know that I've seen that and been a part of that. I also recognize the extreme wealth gap, as well as I sit in my privilege in my home, in a place that I believe the community has a 2-3%. And I don't want to say wrong facts, because I'm all about research. So just know it's not a lot of people before I get to busting out terms of like rates and things of that nature. But I want to say that it's about let's round it out to even 5% of people of color. But the point of it is that that concept is huge when it comes to, land and wealth, generational gaps of that. I mean, I think that the biggest thing is our neighborhood just had land covenants removed from it, meaning that people that look like me, who were, or if you're Jewish, or again, going back to that concept of the Christianity concepts, you had to be white and, have any other religion other than being, I guess, Jewish, to be able to live here, which is insane. However, it was real, and people had it, handed down, deed to deed to deed, capping on land. And so I sit in that concept of privilege and gratitude to even be here, like in this house, in this neighborhood. However, I know other people that look like me can afford to be here. And if they wanted to, could. However, there's also the barrier of those that should be, if they were given the opportunity to make the money, to build the wealth, to then allow them and afford them to be get a loan that's favorable, not one that's got some flip side, where the banks are killing it, but they're getting some crazy interest rate. Again, like, these topics and spaces are like, I'm popping like lids of like fume over here. So I can go down any one of them and just
Mhm.
go deep dive, especially when it comes to the banking situation and the education situation, because it's all a disparity. And so I've been so lucky to have, a few good neighbors, literally. And I mean, they're all great as humans, right? I love them all as humans. Everyone's a human and we appreciate them for what they bring to the table. However, not everyone understands the humanity in me and people that look like me. And for those that have or do, I've gotten to a chance to know better. And we've had some really great opportunity to talk about some really uncomfortable conversation surrounding race and equity, and being able to engage in some conversations continually to just, again, like I was talking about my husband, I'm bringing a fresh perspective on things that never have been thought about, never have been um, looked at. And so even the concepts of like my kids not wearing hoodies, right?
Mhm.
uh, Not like, we live in a little cul-de-sac, don't go out the cul-de-sac, stay right here. When you ride your bike, they got to do a quick loop, bring it on back. You bring it on back, you don't get to go too far. But
Mhm.
it's all because of just being safe. Not that I believe that something bad is going to happen, but I don't believe something bad couldn't. And
Mhm.
that's anywhere, but specifically where we live. And then so again, I hope that that answers your question, but I just think that there's so many levels of disparity that I could have gone down deeper with any of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely answers my question, and it puts it in perspective. I mean, as you're raising children in your community and knowing that, like, given our history, like you said, it could happen. And so you taking the steps, as their mother, of making sure that they're safe and
Hmm.
protecting them the best that you can. Unfortunately, we don't get to control everything, but when you can, making sure that they're safe and they know those precautions, unfortunately, as young Black kids, they have to be. And you giving them that education is so great. And so, as you know, with Icon, my goal really is to make sure that domestic violence is, at the forefront and taken as serious as any other, issue or topic that we talk about. So,
Hmm.
I do want to get your perspective and understand, like, what is your thoughts around the racial inequalities that happen within systems of domestic violence, and even in just in our health industry in general? Because as someone who's experienced it, but also knows that, like, as a person of color, we don't always get the same quality of services, when we need tending to, when it comes to, like, trying to get resources for domestic violence, or trying to, like, even as someone who's had children and, like, not feeling like I'm being taken care of, in the health industry or at a hospital, or if I take my, there's the time I took my son, I remember, to the hospital one time, and he had hurt himself, and I was made to feel like, I wasn't a good mother. So, there's so many
Mm.
inequalities and cultural, there's not a lot of cultural awareness when it comes within these systems for us to really take care of our women of color really carefully. And so I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, because I do have a bachelor's in nursing and I have been in the hospitals, I do know what you mean. And um my aunts could be a couple of aunts. Well, first of all, my mother experienced like, not my granny, but my mother has experienced domestic violence that I was around for. Um, However, although I wasn't physically hurt, I was emotionally impacted upon as a child, right? Because I was there. So to see that, and to see it in a number of ways, it just is one of those things where it still is an imprint. It leaves an imprint. And then I was so blessed to have my granny to kind of swoop in and take me in, because of the simple fact that imprint could have led me a number of ways. And because of her covering. I always call her my guardian angel. She kind of swooped in and kept me sheltered from that. And so I'll be forever grateful for that. However, I know the impact it had on my siblings, my mother, and there's just you can't I don't even know how to put it into words, the impact that it had on them, me too, but them specifically, because they lived through it on a regular basis. I don't know the statistics in regards to people of color or Black women specifically, and resources. So that's one that I know that if it follows the trend, it probably is not the best. However, I can't speak to that directly, but I can speak to the concept of systems and the level of care that people of color, specifically Black women, get. And again, this is like a deep dive for me because of the simple fact that I understand the history of our nation, the concept of what a Black woman's body was innately like when we came, or ancestors hit the shores of, not before, it wasn't the United States, in the colonies, right? There was already a system in place for those Black bodies, specifically the women. And then you had they abolished slavery. I mean, not slavery, but the transatlantic slave trade. And then your body became a factory, right? And then it became, so the Black body on a number of levels has always been, one that has been mishandled, misused, but I specifically feel a certain type of way about a Black woman's body when you think of the concept of gynecology and how it came to be, and who was really the people who were being tested on, without any type of medication, because you get those stereotypes then at that point that Black people and Black women don't feel pain. Therefore, you don't get the same treatment when you do go somewhere and you are in pain. As a nurse, even, I had my daughter, my very first daughter, and I've got 3 out of my 4 are girls. And so my first daughter, my husband was out of town, so I had to drive myself to the hospital, get there, and the nurse asks me, because I'm scared out of my mind, and she doesn't ask me anything outside of my name and what state aid I had. I said, oh, okay. I'm sorry, what? Because I wanted to play like I'm not sure what I knew exactly what she meant, but I wanted to flip it. I'm sorry, what did you mean? I'm not sure what that is. Like, what is state aid? Oh, what insurance do you have? That's the question you should have asked me, sis. Like, that's what you really meant to say. But no, that's not what you said to me at all. That is not at all what you said to me. Because of the color of my skin and where I was having my baby, in her mind, it just made sense that I must have state aid. Yeah. When essentially, nope, we still pay, we pay premiums. We've got insurance, ma'am. And so on top of that, even going into the concept of, anesthesia, where I have 4 C-sections, but there was just this time that the anesthesia just manhandling the concept of inserting a needle into my spine. Like, it was like it don't hurt. Like, you can't tell me to sit still when you're digging and maneuvering and jiggling 4 or 5 times to get a knee. And so I had to let them know, you guys don't, I am a nurse. I know that this is not what it takes. Like, it doesn't take that. So, and then to flip side that same incident, to have a spinal leak. Like, after surgery, baby's out, I had a spinal fluid leak based on the fact this man dug this thing 4 or 5 times into my spine. And logistically, and it took me to say what I did, who I was, and my knowledge for it to get in that next time. No problems. But essentially, all of that goes to show, and the concept of that healthcare system. I mean, the stories, that's not the end of my storyline, right? I could rattle off a few more, but it all boiled down back to me being the person with knowledge. When I came into the situation, I had to prove myself. Like you said, you were seen when you took your baby in, you were deemed as a whatever, an unfit mom or whatever. I don't know the scenario. However, if you would have flipped it on them and then told them like, oh, well, actually, have these credentials, or you prove yourself as a person, as a Black woman, about your child. Or for me, it was about my health, my care, my mom's care, like coming into a room for a serious surgery with 4 white men laying, she's in a bed laying out, and you're standing over her with a clipboard to tell her to sign some stuff. No, you're
She can
not.
do that later.
Beyond that though, you can't. What type of bedside manner is that? Right? She has nobody in there, and all of that goes back to show. But again, as soon as they kept rattling off these big words at her, I was able to engage into the conversation on their level, speaking the jargon, speaking the vernacular. But because I could do that, I was seen differently then. Oh, I was that different Black person. I was the different person. Nah, the same person you see in that bed is the same person I am and deserves the same amount of care and responsibility. You can't nephrology and all these big words talking to someone who has no idea what you're talking about, but yet you're going to surgery, sign these papers. No, you can't do that. So historically, if we take that, track record, and we take that track record and we take it to the concept of, domestic violence, I'm pretty sure it kind of could translate into people not caring enough to give it the attention that it needs, the resources that it needs, and to trust that when someone comes to that table, brings that to that table, that it is what it is. And as a human, we need what we need. No one wants to come and bring something like that to the table and into a conversation if it weren't the case. And I think that has been that in the concept of the Me Too movement, all of that has kind of like, it's just shed the light and taken the veil off of things that have been covered for so long.
I love that point so much, because what it makes me think of is when we do go into like these health institutions, or even sometimes unfortunately happens in like social services, where people have this mentality of like, why do you keep going back, and or you doing this to yourself, when they don't really understand the full extent. And domestic violence is such a complex issue. There's so many different layers of what we're going through. Big time.
I think that's everything in life, right? It's always so simple for someone to look at a problem and say, why don't you just do that? That's just so easy. You should do that. Yeah, okay, you do that. Or kind of like that, when people will say, I'll never do da 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 until you get put in that situation. You don't get to tell me what you won't never do until you get put in that situation, and you then never do that thing. Because essentially what you think you really have no idea. There's so many like, I guess like mental, even like I would kind of watch the series on R. Kelly. It's everything starts and stops in the mind. And if you could get somebody to get that, your mind, and lock it down. And I saw it with my mom, right? Like all the different levels of abuse, it does manifest itself into physical abuse in my situation for her. However, when as an adult now, I'm able to decipher all the other levels and layers of abuse that was like, there is no such thing as minor abuse or major abuse. Abuse is abuse. However, like it's like layered abuse. Whether it's like physical, mental, verbal, all of it, and the trigger points, like you think you're doing something right, but because somebody starts drinking and then they're skewed, then the thing you thought was right is wrong all of a sudden. And it's just, it's insane. It's insane. And I think that unless you have ever lived that life, that's why I had to be very respectful in that space of like giving you how I felt about the resources, because I never personally had to go through the resources, but the concept of what I saw and was a part of was enough.
That's so true. And I mean, back to even just like resources, as I'm learning and even from my own experience, like, a lot of women don't leave because they may not have the money, or, they're going to be behind on rent, or something is stopping them that can impact another, very
Yeah.
negative thing. And so, like, your children not having a
Yeah.
place to go. I mean,
Right.
I was calling trying to help a woman just recently get into a shelter. And literally, they said that every shelter in Minnesota is completely booked due to COVID, because so fatality rates have gone up 40%, domestic violence has
Whoa.
gone up about
Well,
50%,
yes.
so much. And so there's no space for women. And so as you think about, that access to something, they can't go anywhere because there's no shelters now. They don't have the money to book a hotel, or maybe not have the resources for family. Like, there's just a lot of it going on. And so I really appreciate your
Hmm.
point, just back to like that resource piece too, because, if you haven't been directly impacted by it, it still statistically is impossible to, whether someone or have been around a family member who has been impacted by it. So I appreciate that.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so I always like to, like, towards the end of our conversation, I always like to know who the icons are in people's life. Who are those people who you looked up to who've overcame negativity? I always love to, like, hear that. That's one of my favorite questions. So I would love to know, who are those icons that been in your life, Nicole?
That one, feel like I've got a good handful of them. I mean, outside of my granny, I think she's like my number one icon. I think that again, whenever I get ready to go ham, like if I go, I mean, snap, like I gotta. Oh, granny wouldn't do that. Let me bring it back. That's not that she would not be pleased. So she definitely, even in the spirit, brings me back. Again, got to go back to my husband. Like he's a big um inspiration on a number of levels. To just again, he makes things look so seamless, and I'm like, aspirations, babe. I set goals. I want to make my side of the bed like that, like all the things, like the girl. I could go on in that space. And as with his job and the things that he's done, um he has, I guess, overcoming negativity, not in the direct way we're talking about it here, but negativity is negativity. And I believe that he has such a gift of letting stuff roll off his shoulder, where I'd be like, what? It's a song. God, I
Mm.
don't tweet. I don't tweet. I can't tweet because I can't be on Twitter like that. Like,
You would blow up,
no.
Nicole.
What? Girl, I just can't. And so I know myself, so therefore I'll send a nice little tweet every Happy Thanksgiving, or you know what I mean, something like that. And we actually the Thanksgiving concept is not we harvest day, like we harvesting over here, like. But the point of it is that he just really is like, you're not gonna bother me. Well, he bothered me, so let me. Oh, he's always an inspiration in that space. And then I gotta say, my best friend CG, she's a maternal health counselor.
Mm.
Even though I'm not maternal, she definitely is my health counselor, even though she doesn't know it. It's just like girl talk, but it's like me just like, help. And she just listens, and and then I always get the concept of like, what does she say? She says, so do you want the professional answer, or do you want your best friend's answer? I'll be like, both. And she'd be like, okay, girl, what? Da, da, da. And then she'll be right, but you know, an alternative way to think about that is, and then she goes, so reframe it. Can you reframe it to do this? I could, and I probably should, but I think that I hear you. So again, a different perspective, and I always look up to her. And even before being like, I guess, an adult, we went to college together. She was I was her, we were roommates.
Mm.
And most people, not most people, I don't know what most people do. I was told of several times that, oh, don't be, roommates with your best friend when you go to college, because you guys, you guys will fall out. But that never happened.
Mm.
She probably, outside of my husband, knows me authentically to my heart, all the good, the bad, the ugly, and she doesn't think I'm crazy. So I love her for that. She thinks I'm a well-rounded person, and she's always able to continue to inspire me. And she's overcome her own battles, right? Of a number of things. And she always reframes it. And I think that I aspire to be able to do that too, because otherwise I'm gonna have high blood pressure. And so I don't want that. So I got to learn to reframe it. So I think between them, those three, oh, I cannot, Auntie Michelle Obama, like,
I knew what she's talking about.
girl, like, icon. I mean, iconic. Like, I don't know. I could go on and on and on about that concept as well. But the premise of it is you can be in the White House and live and deal with all of the bashing, the names, the tropes, all the stuff that was said and done to her as a Black woman, and still hold it down as a first lady. But then as soon as you step out that vein, you let your bun down, shake it out, and you like, come at me if you want to. Yep. Like, and you get, and to do it so lovingly about the concept. Like, I have a shirt that says, when they go low, we go high. I have to literally think like that's exactly what she had to do for a long years. And I can't imagine what that does to someone's psyche, because I feel like that's a level of abuse too. Like,
oh, for sure.
And I think that it was purposeful on many fronts. However, I think that she was the epitome of grace, and she was the epitome of just what a Black woman, I believe, I aspire to be. Like, she held that face. She was supportive, but then when the time came, she as President Obama left office, she stepped into her being.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the why the book, Becoming, like, she became. It wasn't that she necessarily was becoming, it was the fact that we were figuring out that she was becoming, because we didn't know what was going on with her while she had to keep it together. And I think that goes back to the concept of abuse, right? When you have to save face, you still have to function, but behind closed doors, you're dealing with something else. And to have to put on a front and a facade for the rest of the world, but to know that your inner being, and in this situation, in the abuse situation, your physical being is under attack, is difficult. So that's, I guess I'll close out with her, because I think that those people really, if I were to think of icons in my life and who I would love to pull pieces of in my little toolkit of life, I think it would be them.
That's so awesome. And I always love how, I always say this with people, they draw to the ones who have truly impacted their personal lives. But then, we get a touch of like that personal piece, but then also like those icons, the big icons like Michelle Obama, who really are making that global change. So that's awesome. I love to hear that. Mm-hmm. And so everyone, what I am going to do is add information on this podcast about Queen Anna House of Fashion. And please go check out her store in the North Loop. It is amazing. I'm wearing one of the shirts. My power shirt. Yeah, I was wearing one of the, I had a shirt that I got from you. It said, I will win. And like, I was walking around the lake and everyone was like, yes, you are going to win. And I had to think about, what are they talking about? And I had forgot, because I was like, what? And then like, I was like, oh my God, it's the shirt. And I was I was telling my friend, I said, I'm going to keep wearing this shirt because I'm getting all the attention. Everybody's saying I'm going to win, and I was manifesting. And I mean, those are like my favorite shirts, that you have all of the like positive messages, the powerful ones. Because like, to me, like when you speak like that gratitude, that positivity, it really becomes a lasting impression in your mind. And so I really appreciate like that fashion that you have at your store. So everyone, please check it out.
I'm so glad that you do. I have on a necklace right now that says radical. Yeah. And I was like, that just is so fitting. Yeah. I don't think I could be any other way.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows the power again of like your brand. So I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a good conversation.
Thank you. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. Have a good day.
Thank you. You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.